has been some of your weirdest interaction with fans? Because I know you go to conventions and you meet the fans, and sometimes you posted photos of them in cosplay from quite a few from Five Nights at Freddy's. But what have been some of your weirder interactions? Because you hear the horror stories of, oh, there was one, I think it's Anaconda, or I hope I got that name right, where she had a stalker and it was from one of her fans. Have you had something like that or something similar?
For the most part, my fans have been really good. Like, I haven't had any, I don't deny that those sorts of things do happen. But for me personally, I know that a large part of my audience is people with the tweens or people that have autism. I'm aware that that is part of the fan base for Five Nights at Freddy's. So a lot of the interactions I have is people that have a hard time communicating or that they are very painfully shy. And I'm aware of that. And I go into that knowing that these interactions can sometimes feel kind of stilted, but I'm aware that it's not them trying to be weird, quote unquote. It's just part of who they are, and I'm okay with that. One of the coolest interactions I had, because I do get a lot of actually really fantastic interactions, is there was someone that came up to my booth completely deaf, and I didn't know sign language, so I didn't have a way to communicate with him, but he was able through facial expressions and hand gestures to ask, you voice these characters, you voice all of them, that's amazing. And I was able to then communicate, yes, this is me, thank you so much. And it was a small interaction, but I remember it because it was like, oh yeah, you don't need words to communicate, you just need intention. And I so distinctly remember that because I was like, that was really cool. That was a really awesome interaction, I enjoyed that.
I suppose the advantage you've got with that is it could be worse. You could have a fan base that's quite rabid. I know Ruby's fan base has a bit of a reputation for that. And
Mhm.
let's say you were famous for voicing one of those characters. I mean,
I have a friend that's in the Has Been Hotel or Hell of a Boss, sorry. Yeah, so when they go to a convention, their line just like wraps around the block and it's nonstop for them, which I'm like, that's amazing, that's the goal. But also that fan base can be full of the most creative and sometimes a little scary people. So I know that they've had to, you know, go in knowing that. So I'm aware that those sorts of things do tend to happen. Just luckily, I'm not a child doing this. I'm not a teenager for the first time I got cast in Stranger Things and now, oh my God, my life has blown up. I'm fully an adult who grew up in the convention space. I started going to conventions when I was 14. So I'm well aware of what kind of people you get at conventions. So it did not surprise me when that's the kind of people that would come over and talk to me.
you just made me kind of self-reflect a bit. I thought, oh, actually, that's kind of the advantage I've got at the moment as well, because I started this podcast when I was 24, 25 now. But
Hmm.
then saying that, imagine if I started to do it when I was 14. And then
Yeah.
I had the same conversations and interviews that I have right now with people I've had on. I just wonder how different my life would have turned up or would end up turning out, because there's a popular theory with people given their circumstance and fame. I mean, we know what happens to child actors, but there's a guy called Chris Williamson. He runs the Modern Wisdom podcast. He's got a theory about what he was referring to Jordan Peterson, because that guy got famous when he was what, 50, 60?
Hmm.
And his idea was, well, what would happen if you took a guy who's basically gone at least 50 years, not in the public sphere, and then all of a sudden, the later years of his life, arguably his coming up his twilight years, then he's thrusted into the public spotlight.
I mean, most voice actors finally become famous or an overnight sensation 10 years into your career. So you have this kind of look, you're able to look back and be like, oh, this is where I came from, here's where I am now. And you have the differentiation of the thing. So you can ground yourself and know like, that's not normal. This is not a normal situation because you know what is a baseline for normal. I think about the kids from Stranger Things who like they grew up incredibly famous. I'm really hoping that they continue to thrive and they have a good support system, but also like that had to be really overwhelming that had to really shape who they are because they didn't have that much of a baseline for what is a normal interaction with an adult 40-something-year-old when I'm 7. Like, that had to change things. So I'm really grateful that I have now kind of hit this stride and starting to become well known later in my life. Yes, I do kind of wish it happened when I was a teenager, but also looking back in hindsight, I'm like, no, it's probably better that I know myself more now than back then.
I would say it makes you more grounded because I couldn't help but think of Miley Cyrus
Mhm.
when back when she played Hannah Montana. We all know how that one ended. I mean, I've not had a happy childhood. I'll just throw that out there now. But I dread to think what would have happened if I got televised. That would have been what.
Oh, I know.
Uh,
And now kids these days who are like, they're growing up on social media and they're putting themselves out there and they're putting out all the stupid things that you say and do as a kid. And they're putting that out online forever. And it's like, why would no, don't do that. You're going to look back on that and hate that you put that out. It's going to be there. People are going to be able to find that.